also thank Franny Wiseman, who is here. As she said to me before, I hope you don't mind if I share this. Franny and I live about 4 houses away from each other in Efrat. I know some of you have been to Efrat. And Baruch Hashem, Franny is gifted with a beautiful voice, and we're so lucky to have her here. And I said, maybe you'll come and you'll be our musical inspiration for the evening. But Franny is actually here also as a warrior, as a home warrior, because Franny's husband Eviatar has been in and out, but mostly in service in the army since Simchas Torah. And she has 5 beautiful Kananahar little boys at home. So it's no small thing that she's here with us this evening. Thank you, Fanny. Okay, today is the official title for this commemorative day is Yom HaZikaron LaShoah V'Lagvura. Day of Remembrance for the Holocaust and the heroes whose acts of heroism were brought on by the catastrophe that they were faced with. This day is forever intertwined with Pesach because essentially when acts of heroism were thought of, the one that came to mind most quickly, most profoundly, was the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, which began on Erev Pesach, 1943. So, because that was the momentous event that really was going to be commemorated in the opening years, 1951, when this event was first commemorated in Israel. But you can't do an Erev Yom HaShoah on Pesach, right? So the date of the 27th of Nisan was chosen. And that was the date that was the closest to Pesach so that we could commemorate the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising without actually being on Pesach. And as you know, tonight is actually not Kav Zayin, it's not the 27th, it's 28th, because if it falls out too close to Shabbos, then we push it off. And that's a really, really significant thing, because we are here to commemorate an event in history, but we are here to honor the memory of all those who lost their lives, all those who lost their families, and also all those who survived and who were witness to this tragedy and whose own heroism just in surviving is part of our legacy, and it's something that is part of what makes Am Yisrael so strong, that in every generation they rise up against us. In every generation they try to destroy us, but in every generation we pull through. So just to open our evening, to open our hearts, song is the language of the soul. So we can't do this evening without song. And I was saying to Ruth on the way over here that being together like this, hearing Ruth's story, Be'ezrat Hashem, and singing together is a form of tefillah. And we have what to pray for. We have what to daven for right now. So please join us together. We're going to sing, I think, somewhat of a theme song of Am Yisrael these days. A theme song, for sure, of Pesach, but a theme song of all of our souls. So we are going to sing right away.
You guys all know the song.
There we go.
I'm just here to help you guys sing. We're gonna all sing this together. Bezrat Hashem.
והיא שעמדה לאבותינו, והיא שעמדה לאבותינו ולנו, שלא אחד בלבד עמד עלינו לכלותנו, עמד עלינו לכלותנו, והיא שעמדה לאבותינו, והיא שעמדה לאבותינו ולנו, שלא אחד בלבד עמד עלינו לכלותנו, עמד עלינו לכלותנו, והקדוש ברוך הוא מצילנו, מצילנו מידם, והקדוש ברוך הוא מצילנו, מצילנו מידם. לי 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 la 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 והיא שעמדה לאבותינו ולנו, שלא אחד בלבד עמד עלינו לכלותנו, עמד עלינו לכלותנו, והקדוש ברוך הוא מצילנו, מצילנו מידם, והקדוש ברוך הוא מצילנו, מצילנו מידם, שלא אחד בלבד עמד עלינו לכלותנו, לכלותנו, הקדוש ברוך הוא מצילנו, והקדוש ברוך הוא מצילנו מידם. לי 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 la 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 la
Thank you, Franny. Okay, we're gonna open up. Thank you so much for being with us here today. Why don't you begin by introducing where you were born, who your parents were, and what it was like to live when you were a little girl.
Working?
It's on. Yeah.
All right. So, my name is Ruth Berlinger. I was born in Warsaw, in Poland, 1931. Is there a picture of my parents? Yes. And here is a picture of my parents, which I very much wanted to tell you a little bit about. There were some unusually lovely and loving couple. It was just a miracle that they married each other, because they came from two Jewish, completely different milieus. Can you say so? Yeah. My father came from Hasidim. They were open-minded. They loved to travel and to read books of all kinds. They were very religious and very rich. I mean, they were very, very well off. Then there was my mother, who comes from a very secular Jewish family. They know very little about tradition and about religion. They were Bohemians. Many members of her family were musicians. My mother was a pianist. And besides, they were very, very poor. So it was really a miracle that these two individuals coming from so different kind of milieu, they met, they fell in love, and they married, and they had a wonderful long marriage during the terrible war as well. And here is my family before the war. My father is the man second from the left. My mother is the lady in the middle in a white light dress. My sister Miriam, 9 years older, is to the right of her. And my grandparents are sitting in the first row. And myself, you can see me on the left side. There were some small boys, my cousins, which were not yet born when this picture was taken. And there is a special reason why I'm telling you about such a detail, because after the war, most of the people, included the small boys who were born just before the war started, most of these people were murdered.
I have a picture of you here with
Here you can see me with my best friend, Rex. And I had the great joy of having a little zoo at home. It was not only the dog, I had birds, I had aquarium, white mice and snake, all kinds of things. And so I was very privileged to have such a freedom and be able to enjoy it.
Many of us here have heard about the famous Dr. Korczak, Dr. Janusz Korczak. Anybody who did a trip to Poland this year or any other year, you've, I'm sure, heard about him. And you had a very interesting experience with Dr. Korczak, didn't you?
Yeah. First of all, I would like to know how many of you know who Korczak was? Oh, that's a lot. That's really a lot. And for the rest of you who happen not to know, it's not a shame. It was perhaps you can tell a bit about Korczak.
Sure. He was a pediatrician, and he ran an orphanage in Warsaw. And he was very ahead of his time for how he viewed children and how he dealt with children.
Yes, and I had some special reason to remember Janusz Korczak, who was then very, very famous all around the world, and he's still very famous and admired. He was a medical doctor, and as I had a bad habit of not eating enough. My parents invited several doctors to check me or to try to help me, and I don't remember any of these doctors, but I do remember Dr. Janusz Korczak, because he was so different, he was so charming, and we talked about a lot of things, about his books, which all the children, not only Jewish children, of course, had at home, about his theater pieces of theater. And I remember that after checking me, my mother asked him, can you tell me what's wrong with this young girl? And Dr. Korczak said, I can tell you, madam, that there is nothing wrong with this young girl, but she's very spoiled.
So did he get you to eat?
And he said as well, here is Dr. Janusz Korczak, he said that I'm quite sure that if it would happen, that there will be a situation that there will be too little food, your child would be the first one to ask for it. And he was right. That happens a couple of years before the Second World War started.
When you were growing up, did you experience anti-Semitism in Poland as a child before the war?
If I experienced any anti-Semitism, well, I really didn't know what it was, but I remember, for instance, going with my mother to a dressmaker. By that time, there were no shops with clothes for children. So everyone had to provide the child either by making a dress by himself, herself, or to, I don't know how they did, but anyway, everybody was dependent on a dressmaker, and our dressmaker was a non-Jewish woman, I wouldn't say a lady, and I hated visiting her. She had a very, very huge portrait on her wall of, perhaps I'm doing a wrong thing. Well, she had a portrait of Jesus. And this portrait showed Jesus with beautiful golden, very, very blonde hair, which already that was absolute impossibility, because he was a Jewish boy, a Jewish man. He was dark, his complexion, his hair, everything was very dark. But for her, I mean, she would just take a pair of scissors and kill my mother and myself if we told her that Jesus comes from a Jewish background. And she didn't like Jews. We didn't like her either. And once, before we went home, this little old lady said, Jews are bad people. They killed our Lord. They killed my Jesus. So that was the most significant sign of anti-Semitism, which I remember.
I think everyone in this room remembers where they were on October 7th, on Simchas Torah, when we heard the news. I'm wondering if you remember exactly the moment when you realized World War II had begun?
I did get it.
If you remember when the war began, what it was like when the war began.
When the war began. Well, I remember it very well. The war began in September 1939, and I was almost 8 years old. And it was very terrifying, of course. Warsaw, my town, was heavily bombed, and many people were killed. And after 3 weeks of fighting, the war was over. Poland was, by the way, the first country in Europe which was attacked by the German army. And after 3 weeks, the Germans were there. And then all our life changed.
Can you tell us a little bit about how your life changed?
The Germans gave us a lot of information. They put on big signs, how do you say, placard?
Signs.
Yes, signs on the streets, and they came several times every week, and they were telling people what was allowed to do and what was forbidden to do. And by that time, I could already read, and I saw something which was very astonishing. And I asked my parents how come that there is a difference in laws for non-Jewish people and for Jewish people. And I remember very well my father trying to tell me that I was too little and too silly, he said, to understand and to discuss such a big question. But he promised me that he will come back when I will grow up a bit and get some more brains, he said. And this never happened, not because I didn't get any more brains, but because this is a question which have been discussed among us Jewish people since the beginning of our time as human beings, I think. And there is no explanation because there is no logic. It's only a lot of hate. So I never got a good explanation to why there were different laws for Jews and non-Jews.
And at the beginning of the war, the Germans took property from Jews, right? I remember you telling one time about your father's library. Can you tell us what happened with your father's library?
Yes, there came an announcement telling us that all the Jews of Warsaw and surroundings will be transported into a place called ghetto. And we will be allowed only to take with us some pieces of clothes and some stuff for the kitchen, and that's all. Everything else would from now on belong to Germany. And I remember the last day we were in our beautiful, big and elegant apartment, and which already lacked something which I was so dependent on and so much in love with, and that was all my animals. Because the Germans said that animals were superior to Jews, and Jews would not be allowed to take care of any animals. So I had to give away my dog and all the other animals. And then there was a library belonging mostly to my father. It was a beautiful selection of books. When my father, who was a businessman, was traveling in Europe, from each such a travel, he came back very happy and proud, showing us some of the unique books he bought, some first editions, some antiquities, and books in different languages. And he formed a wonderful, very well-known library. And now the Germans came to our home and put stamps all over everything which belonged to us. And on the stamps it was written, indicated, belongs to Germany. So my father lost his beautiful collection of books. And my mother, who was pianist, lost her piano. And my sister, who was 18 years of age, she lost all her friends and all her boyfriends and all the joy she had.
When I heard that part of your story, I thought of a song that we could sing together about what happens when you don't have the words to express yourself anymore. You didn't have your animals anymore for that form of self-expression, and your mother didn't have her music really anymore, and your sister didn't have her friends anymore, and your father didn't have his library of words anymore. And I think this song expresses the idea of the heartbreak of not having the words to say, and relying on Hashem, and Hashem to provide us with the strength and maybe words of a different form. So I'll invite everybody to join Franny. I'll invite you to lead us in this beautiful song, which is really a song that we sing around Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur time. But I think on some level, like this whole year has been, in a way, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. So still, I think, an appropriate time to sing.
ועד מפעלה לאדם מחלב ומאשר מנה לשון אשר שפתי תפתח ובי יגיד תהילתך לאדם מחלב ומאשר מנה לשון השם שפתי תפתח ופי יגיד תהילתך.
That's how it goes?
Yeah.
One more time. Feel it.
החלב מנה שלם ממנו מנה לשון אכיל על הלב החלב מנה שלם ממנו מנה לשון אשר בקהל השיר העוזו אביע רננות ועד מפעלה אשר בקהל השיר העוזו אביע רננות ועד מפעלה לאדם מחלב ומאשר מנה לשון אשר שפתי תפתח ופי יגיד תהילתך לאדם מחלב ומאשר מנה לשון השם שפתי תפתח ופי יגיד תהילתך.
May our words go up to Hashem's ears. Okay, so your family was in one of the places that is the most famous of tragic places during the Holocaust, the Warsaw Ghetto. What was it like moving into the ghetto? What was it like moving into the ghetto? It's still on. It's good.
Well, ghetto was a part of Warsaw. No one knew what ghetto was, but it looked very, very scary. This part of the town was now built up. It was surrounded by high walls and with barbed wire on the top and some heavy big doors. Each door was guarded by a German soldier. And of course we didn't want to go into ghetto, but we had no choice, as usual. So it was announced that each of us would be able to take with us only some told you about it. Also.
But you can tell them.
Yes, some very simple things, and rest would from now on belong to Germany. And then came this terrible day when all the Jewish people were forced into ghetto, and it was a number of 350,000 Jewish people. And from the very beginning, as it was so crowded and so terribly dirty, a lot of diseases, epidemic diseases started, and these diseases killed a lot of people every day.
You moved in with your grandparents, right?
Right.
And many, many other members of the family.
Yes, that's right. The picture you saw in the beginning was a photograph of my father's part of the family, my grandparents, on his grandparents, my father's grandparents. And we were now 14 people living in the same apartment. And everything was changed to some terrifying kind of life. The most terrible thing for all of us were the children who lost their parents and their siblings, and they were living on the street. They had no place to go. That was their home. And they lived there. They tried to beg for some food during the day, and they died on the street.
Was there any way to cope with life? Was there anything that people did to try to make it a little bit more, a little better?
Yes, I'm very, very proud of my father and my sister. They and some other friends of theirs made a great effort, and they tried to, first of all, to save the children, some of the children from the streets. And they succeeded in taking care of many of these children into an empty house. I don't know why, I don't know the reason why they had this possibility, but in this house and in some other places, my father and many of his friends tried to make some kind of culture, some musical performances, some theater, any kind of something which could lift up people and give them some hope and something else than terrible diseases and fear. So that was a great achievement, and it went on for a few months, if I remember right.
You told me that the people who came to the concerts, what did they bring with them to give to the children?
Yes, it was of course not a question of taking some flowers for the people for the children who were performing, because there were never any flowers in ghetto. But they came, the public came with some piece of bread or some vegetables, some extra things to eat. And that was a great joy for the performers.
That's so beautiful because it enabled the people who came to help and to also benefit. So it gave the children a chance to give also. Ruth was saying that her sister's name was Miriam. So we were discussing that it was like Miriam HaNevi'ah when she sang at the sea, that your sister was like bringing everybody along. Yes?
Yes, please.
Well, we thought that maybe it would be a good time to sing another song that has become a bit of an anthem for this time period. When Jews help other Jews out, when Jews are together like this, so we give each other strength. And the song that really speaks to that is a song that I'm sure you all know. And I wanna ask you, if you know the words by heart, I know the room is like really, really lit up, right? So just close your eyes if you know the words by heart, and let yourself sing, and let us all sing together, because there's so much power in the words of this song. And Baruch Hashem, there's so much power in Franny leading us. So let's really open up our hearts. Close your eyes, open up your hearts, and we'll sing together.
I'm going to add just a request that when we sing this song, have in mind the people that still need to return home, who are our brothers and sisters.
בית ישראל, אחינו, כל בית ישראל, הנתונים בצרה ובשירה, העומדים בין הים ובין ביבשה. אחינו, כל בית ישראל, אחינו, כל בית ישראל, הנתונים בצרה ובשירה, העומדים בין לים ובין ביבשה. המקום ירחם, ירחם עליהם, יוציאם מצרה, לרווחה ומאפל עליון, משעבוד לגאולה השתה, בגלה ובזמן קריב. המקום ירחם עליהם, יוציאם מצרה, לרווחה ומאפל עליונה, משעבוד לגאולה השתה, בגלה ובזמן קריב. אחינו, כל בית ישראל,
is what we need. Achenu and Achdus. So beautiful to be here together. Okay. So, your parents, things got worse and worse in the ghetto. Things got worse and worse in the ghetto.
Yes.
What eventually made your parents decide to risk everything to try to escape from the ghetto?
In the ghetto, it happened all the time that there were some so-called selections, and then we were forced to stand on the street, usually 4 after 4 after 4, and then the Germans came and took people to a place from where the trains were leaving to concentration camps. And this selections was a terrible tragedy because very often families were split, divided, or sometimes the Germans wanted only to take out children or any kind of people they just wanted to punish. And this was a terrible ongoing tragedy. And then at one of these selections, the 4 of us, my parents, my sister Miriam and myself, were standing, or we were crawling on our knees along a very, very long street. And at the end of the street, there were some German officers looking at the first row, at the people who now were in the front of them, and they decided very quickly, shouting to the right, which means that the 4 people in front of them were still allowed to stay a bit more in ghetto, or they shouted to the left, and then these people were taken to this train station and transported to concentration camps. And it happened so that when we came to the first row, one of the German officers and my father were looking at each other, and they discovered that they were old business friends. They were friends, and they had been working together and traveling together on business in Europe, and they were visiting each other's family. My father went to visit this man and his family in Hamburg, and this man was visiting our place in Warsaw. And this German officer had just a short moment to decide, and he looked at my father and shouted to the right, and he saved our life, of course, for the time being. And as I can tell you that after the war, my father made a great effort trying to find this man who saved our life. And it took a very, very long time until we had the bad news that the whole family of his and he himself were not alive anymore. And then, after this selection, we came back to the place where we lived in ghetto, one of the places we lived together with my father's family. And we discovered that the Germans were there. They took all the members of my family. There was no one left, and we never saw them again. And I think it was after this terrible shock and during this despair for our family that we lost our dear ones, my parents decided that we must leave ghetto.
Can you tell the girls about the incident with the German officer called Frankenstein?
Well, you heard some of the terrible stories I tell my friends. And one of the stories is about a man in ghetto who had a nickname, and he got a nickname Frankenstein because he was a devil, and I think he was quite abnormal. He was always in very good mood. He was walking around smiling, and Frankenstein had one hobby, and that was to kill children. He had a great satisfaction and great joy when he could kill a child. And everybody knew that that would be the last moment in this child's life to meet with Frankenstein. But it happened once that I was on the street, and all of a sudden Frankenstein was standing in front of me. He was in very good mood. He stopped me. He pulled up his gun toward my head, and he was very happy, and he said, "Now you turn around and go back to your house." And he was pointing with this gun at my head, and I was, of course, absolutely sure that he would kill me. I walked slowly back, I went through the door, and I fainted. Our neighbors were watching from their window, and they told my parents afterwards what happened. And they said that they saw Frankenstein walking some steps forward, and at the next corner he saw a little girl, and he shot her. And that was instead of me. I don't know why.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry for asking. After that, your parents were able to get papers, false papers, to leave the ghetto. Can you tell us how you left and with whom you left?
Well, I don't want to hide anything. but I can't go into details because it takes too long time. So I can just tell you that when we decided to leave ghetto, we did it by bribing one of the soldiers watching the doors, the gates. And even this time we had some incredible luck, because it happened very often that a soldier who was bribed took the money, and then when the people came to go out, he shot them. So again, just by chance, we happened to belong to those who succeeded in leaving ghetto.
And you left only with your mother first, right?
Yes. Because we had some information from the so-called Aryan, non-Jewish part of Warsaw, that one of my mother's sisters and her little family there was room for 2 people, and we could choose whoever we wanted, and that was one of the most terrible days in my life, in all of our life, because we had to decide who will stay and who will go. And they decided that my mother and myself would leave ghetto, and there was no room for my father and my sister. So we had to say goodbye, and we didn't know if we would see each other again.
Where did you and your mother go when you left the ghetto?
Where?
Where?
We went to this address where my mother's sister and her little family were already in hiding. And after many hours, we came there. It was wonderful to see our close family again, but it was terrible because we didn't know if you would meet my father and my sister again.
You told me about an incident that happened right after you left the ghetto with a Polish boy coming up to you.
Yes, as soon as we left the area of ghetto and we were out, my mother and myself, we saw a young man coming to us, and we knew what he wanted. And he said, give me money, I know who you are. And my mother said, we have no money, we didn't have any money. Then he said, give me your ring. And my mother had to give him a wedding ring. And then he left us. And after that, before we came to our destination, we went to the house where we lived before the war started. After noticing our neighbors who were quite decent people, and we were obliged to stay there overnight and continue the day after. And these people had a young daughter, a little bit younger or older, I don't remember. She was about my age, and they didn't allow her to stay with us. But she was listening at the door. And after a while she came in and she said, "What's happening? Who are these people? Are they Jews?" And her father was very angry with her, but she was envious, and he had to answer her, and he said, "Yes, they are Jewish." And then the girl said, "But they have no horns." And that, she was already in school. She was a student in perhaps second or third class, and that's what they were taught in a Polish school. The Jews had horns.
Amazing. Amazing. Eventually, your father and your sister were able to join you, right? Eventually, your father and your sister
Yes.
came out.
Yes, we were quite sure that we would never see them again. But after a couple of weeks, and that was already after the beginning of uprising, the famous uprising in ghetto, in the Warsaw ghetto. My father and my sister succeeded in leaving ghetto, and they came to our place, and we were together.
So in 1942, I'm just going to fill in a little bit of history to lead us into our next song. In the summer of 1942, July, August, and September, from Tisha B'Av until Yom Kippur, the Nazis, like Ruth explained, did a series of selections and roundups and sent close to 300,000 Jews from the Warsaw Ghetto to one place, to Treblinka, and they were all murdered there. After that, the ghetto, there were about 50 to 60,000 Jews still left in the ghetto. There were workshops, but eventually the Nazis came in to liquidate the ghetto, and that was when the Warsaw Ghetto uprising began. And the uprising lasted about a month. And at the end of the uprising, the Warsaw Ghetto was totally bombed out. It was totally burned down, and essentially there was no more Jewish life in Warsaw, in the Warsaw Ghetto, at least. And I thought we thought an appropriate song to sing at this point in Ruth's history and in Am Yisrael's history would be Avinu Malkeinu.
Avinu Malkeinu, Chalenu Aleinu.
I'm laughing all the time.
Avinu Malkeinu, Chalenu Aleinu, Ki en banu maasim. Avinu Malkeinu, Chalenu Aleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Chalenu Aleinu, Ki en banu maasim. Aseh imanu, tzedakah v'chesed. Aseh imanu, tzedakah v'chesed, le'oshienu. Aseh imanu, צדקה וחסד. עשה עמנו צדקה וחסד להושיענו. אבינו מלכנו, חננו בנינו. אבינו מלכנו, חננו בנינו, כי אין בנו מעשים. עשינו מלכנו, חננו בנינו. אבינו מלכנו, חננו בנינו, כי אין בנו מעשים. עשה עמנו צדקה וחסד. עשה עמנו צדקה וחסד להושיענו. עשה עמנו צדקה וחסד. עשה עמנו צדקה וחסד להושיענו.
Please, Hashem, judge us with chesed and not with deen. In hiding, how did you keep going forward every single day? It must have been scary. It must have been sad. How did you just keep on going when your family was in hiding?
I really can't answer this question. It was absolutely,
It's good. It's good. Just hold it closer. Just take it closer.
it was almost impossible to imagine what people can survive. We were, from the first moment in hiding, we were not allowed to make any sound. We were not allowed to talk to each other. We could only whisper. And we were not allowed to come close to a window or to wear shoes. We were not existing altogether. And the only thing we could do was to sit on the floor. We were not able to stay in the same place all the time. Sometimes one of the neighbors was suspecting something and came in and talked to the person who gave us shelter. And then we knew that there is a risk of discovering us, and we had to leave to another place. And sometimes we could do it together, and sometimes we had to divide the family. And that was most terrible. And we knew that there would be a moment when we couldn't stand this suffering anymore, but we helped each other. And in spite of that, my sister Miriam started to be extremely depressed, and she kind of disappeared from us. She didn't want to be with us She didn't want to talk, to whisper, and she didn't want any contact with us. She was there, but she was, on the other hand, not with us. And as I always try to do, as my big sister did, I felt that it would be good to follow her example. And that was something my parents noticed. And then my father had a wonderful idea. He gave the little money we still have had. I don't know if it was all the money or some of this money, to the hostess and asked her to buy some cardboard and some give us a pair of scissors and some colored pencils and some flour to make glue. And my father said to me, listen, we are going to work together, you and me, and we are starting tomorrow morning. And I don't want you to tell me anything disturbing this project. We are going to build a house for dolls. And we are going to work very, very hard. And I am the boss, and you are employed by me, and we will work every day. And I just didn't know how we could imagine this. But from the next day, he made a sketch that was his part of his life. And we worked very, very hard. And after many weeks of work, there was a beautiful house for dolls with several rooms, with doors which could close and open, with colored carpets on the floor, with curtains, with wallpaper. This was my job. I'm still dealing with this after all these years. And my father knew that I was able to make some artistic issues. And there was this beautiful house, and we're very, very happy, and I'm sure that it saved me.
Was there anybody that came to, let me rephrase. There was a wonderful person that also helped your family, correct? Will you tell us about her?
Yes. We couldn't survive this long period of life. It took 2 years in hiding. And we could possibly not survive this time if it wouldn't be for a contact person, a young girl by name Wanda. And Wanda was a Jewish girl. We knew her from ghetto time because she was already trained in the end of ghetto time for what she would do afterwards. And Wanda had a fantastic memory. She was in charge of giving information and even paying to the people who gave
Shelter.
yes, who helped us, because the Jewish people were never allowed to pay, but all the Polish people who were hiding Jews were paid. So Wanda came to us, and every time she came, she was like a sunshine. She was extremely devoted, and she was clever. She was not able, and she was not allowed to make any notes. She had to remember the names, the place, the addresses of all the Jewish families she was in touch with. And she was absolutely wonderful, and she survived. And after the war, Wanda went and settled down as soon as it was possible. She settled down in Tel Aviv and was married here, and her son is still alive. And my little house came with her. But unfortunately, one day someone took it. So I never saw it after the war. I visited Wanda many times when I came to see my parents and my sister in Israel. And then I came to see Wanda, of course, who was our salvation. But then the house was already taken by someone.
Yeah, right? So I thought that was an amazing part of the story, because she was somebody who, like we said, we look above for help, we look to heaven, we dive into Hashem, but we also, Baruch Hashem, have other people. We have heroes among us. So I'm going to turn to you, Franny, because you're a hero among us. Our beautiful musician. We're in the week of Gevura, so I think being a Miluim wife, a Miluima, as we say, is takes a lot of Gevura. Can you tell us a little bit about what that's been like, and then we'll sing again together.
I'm gonna take care of it.
Yeah, go for it.
Well, it doesn't compare to Ruth's story of Gevura, but I do think that something that I've learned is that you don't choose it. When really challenging things happen, we don't choose what happens to us. And I will never forget the 7th of October. My husband is a commander of the Army. He's always been an Army man. Not the kind that is in regular service. He does a lot of reserves all the time. So my kids are used to him leaving, but not, and I'm sure some of you guys, maybe most of you were here. Ken, were a lot of you guys here? And you were in areas that had sirens, and suddenly everything's crazy. And I remember just having to get my kids into bomb shelters while packing my husband's bags. I knew he had to leave right away. And seeing my kids knew it was different. It wasn't a regular reserves. So seeing like my 5-year-old crying on the floor, I don't want Abba to die, is a really hard memory. And then you have the choice to deal with it or break down. And something that I've learned, I'll tell you 2 things that I've learned that I take with me, and I'm still in this situation. B'ezrat Hashem, we should see HaShoah bekarov, and we can end the situation. But number 1 is that we are so blessed to be part of the people we are part of. And when I say every morning, Shelo Asani Goya, it has a different meaning now, because I don't have family in Israel. My husband is very Israeli, but I don't have family here, and his family is not able to help either. They live very far away, and they're all in Milurim too. And the amount of help, beautiful togetherness, beautiful achdut, all different types of help that I wouldn't even think I would need, just immediate. It was immediate. And hearing the story about Wanda, it's like, if you can do something, we're part of the people that's a family, and that's so powerful. It drives the rest of the world crazy because you can't really get rid of it. The family tie, that love is so powerful. And the next thing that I learned is that we are capable of so much more than we think we are. Mamash. And a lot of times we doubt ourselves. Like, I can't really do that. Maybe it's, I don't know, you're in Lashas, maybe it's like working on a midah, working on something, working on whatever it is, the challenges that we have. Maybe it's a family challenge, a friend. We think we can't, like, zem. But if we're really pushed, we can do really hard things and really great things. And I've learned about myself that I'm a super mom, mamash. I didn't know I was. Did not think I could survive this long. But with the help of Am Yisrael and my awesome neighbors, and my awesome community that I live in, and even the people abroad that would like send us things, mamash, the nation of Israel, we can not only survive, but we thrive, we expand, we grow. It's important to never forget that. And I think about right now, you're all here, but you are all very aware of what's happening in America as well. It's scary. And it's a connection that we have as a people, no matter where we are in the world. When people come for us, we unite and we become stronger. And I think that's at a national level, but also on a personal level. When we're challenged, it's not fun, we don't choose it. I wouldn't choose it. If I could go back and it wouldn't happen, I would choose that version. But there's so much to learn about our own power and our own strength, and there's so much to give with that. And I feel like I'm receiving that as well. It's like it's a generational thing. Ruth is sitting here, and then there's us, and there's you and your kids. It's something that never will end, and it's important to remember that and harness that of what we really are as a people.
So we'll sing a song about maybe watching over each other and Hashem watching over us.
So we ask Hashem, Shomer Yisrael, Nachon, right? You should protect us. But Hashem looks at us, are we protecting each other? It's a mirror. How Hashem acts with us, how we act with each other.
Shomer, Shomer Yisrael, Shomer, Shomer Yisrael, Shemo Shelit Yisrael, Shemo Shelit Yisrael, Shomer, Shomer Yisrael, Shomer, Shomer Yisrael, Shemo Shelit Yisrael, Shemo Shelit Yisrael, Ve'ayovad, Ve'ayovad, Ve'ayovad Yisrael, Haomrim Shema Yisrael, Shomer, Shomer Yisrael, Shomer, Shomer Yisrael, Shemo Shelit Yisrael, Shemo Shelit Yisrael, Ve'ayovad, Ve'ayovad, Ve'ayovad Yisrael, Haomrim Shema Yisrael, Ve'ayovad, Ve'ayovad, Ve'ayovad Yisrael, Haomrim Shema Yisrael.
Thank you for sharing that, Fanny. Okay, Ruth, we're gonna jump to the end of the war. We're gonna jump to the end of the war.
Yes, please.
Okay? So, the Russians came, and you were liberated. And after you were liberated, tell us where your family went.
Well, the Russians liberated us, and that was not only a pleasure. We were very happy that the war was over, but we lost so many members of our family. And besides, the Russians were quite terrible. They were raping women, and they thought that that was their right because they liberated us, so they wanted to have some reward. And that was another thing of good things which happened to us, because one of the Russian officers fell in love with Miriam, with my sister, and he was a Jewish man from far away in Asia, I don't know where, and he wanted absolutely to marry her and to take her back to Russia, to his parents. And of course, that wouldn't happen. But he told us that we shouldn't be afraid of anything, because he would do anything to care for Miriam and for her family, and he did. He was extremely decent, and he could help us to leave Warsaw, because we had no place to go, and we came to a place where many other refugees were staying already. We stayed there for quite a while, and all the time my parents were very sick, and we were all dreaming about coming to Palestine. But first my parents said they have to become more healthy, because they were so weak and so helpless. And anyway, my father asked some of his business friends from Sweden if they could help us, if he would come to Sweden for a time being, and to become more human. And they answered and said that, please do, we'll do our best to help you. So we went to Sweden. We went, I think it was still war in half of Warsaw, because this part of Warsaw was on the east side of the city, and that was liberated for first. And we went from there. First we went to see the place where we lived before the war, and there was nothing left, not the house and not the street. Nothing was left. And they decided to go to Sweden, and we came to Sweden, I think in September or November 1944, if I'm not mistaken. The war was still going on. And the Swedes were very helpful and helped my father. But it was a very hard time for all of us. My parents were sick. My sister Miriam left us very soon. She couldn't stand being together. She wanted to come to Palestine as soon as possible, and she came here just when the state of Israel was established. And I had to go to school, and that was another awful experience, which I really hated very much. I didn't understand a word of what the other students were saying. They talked Swedish, and they didn't speak any other language, and I didn't either. And this first year in school was a disaster for me. I spent most of the time, or perhaps a big part of my time in school, I spent in the toilet crying. And my head teacher, Anna, who was a wonderful teacher and human being, she usually left the class and went with me and sat with me and embraced me in the toilet. And after, it took me almost a year to start speaking Swedish. And then my parents started to get better. My sister left us already. And after quite a few years, talking about leaving for Israel as soon as possible, then my father said, now it's time. We are feeling all right. And my father was, as usual, full of optimism and energy. And then they said, now we are going. But by that time, I met a nice Jewish man. His name is Solomon. And I had to decide whether to go with my parents to Israel or to stay and marry Solomon. And why I think that I took a right decision, even it was very difficult. By now, we have been married 71 years. And this is what we looked like some years ago, but time is passing. This is, I think, 4 or 5 years ago, and both of us look much older now.
Beautiful, but also.
But I'm very happy, and this is my family now. You can see my daughter Naomi to the right, and her husband, the tall man in dark, in the middle, and my husband Solomon at his side, and my son-in-law's mother, she is number 3 from right, and the rest are our grandchildren, and they are wonderful. And there is one more picture, and this is a picture of our first great-grandson, little Dan. He is by now 4 weeks old, and we are extremely happy about him.
Esatto.
So that's a great joy, and it's a kind of triumph that we survived, at least the little part of the family. And we are happy that we are in Israel, and all our grandchildren are staying here, and they are useful, they are funny, they are happy, and they are full of joy. They come very often to see us, and every time is a joy. And we are very happy and satisfied being in Israel. This decision should have been done before the war. And we were not clever enough to do it, but we are happy to be here. This is our last station, and a wonderful, happy and good station.
Hashem.
Thank you very much for listening to us. Thank you.
Okay, ladies, there's a few things that we're going to finish up with. I want to just, I want to invite you to, like we said at the beginning, when Ruth's father and her sister organized the concerts in the ghetto, they enabled the children to be givers, not just to be receivers, right? The people that came to the concerts, they brought bread with them to give to the children because the children were very hungry. But the children gave back music. So I actually would like to ask from you. We have a gathering here of amazing Jewish souls. And Am Yisrael are in a time of need. So we're going to finish by singing and saying a few tefillot, okay? The first one, we're going to say the Kel Malei Rachamim for all of the korbanot of the Shoah. We're going to say the Mishaberach for the Chayalim. We're going to say a parak of Tehillim. We're going to sing Ani Ma'amin, and we're going to sing Hatikva, okay? And this is audience participation. So you can all feel free to stand up, because these are tefillot. We have the words on the screen. Maybe, Ruth, would you like to light the candle?
Please do.
Kel Malei Rachamim, שוכן במרומים, דיין אלמנות ואביב יתומים, המצא מנוחה נכונה על כנפי השכינה, ומעלות קדושים טהורים, כזוהר הרקיע מאירים ומזהירים. ונשמות 6 המיליונים אחינו ואחיותינו, רבבות בני ישראל, אנשים, נשים וטף, שנהרגו, שנשחטו, שנשרפו, שנחנקו, שנטבעו ושנקברו, חיים בידי הנאצים ועוזריהם יימח שמם, ושהלכו לעולמים על קידוש השם, בעבור שאנו מתפללים לעילוי נשמותיהם. לכן בעל הרחמים יסתירם בסתר כנפיו לעולמים, ויצרור בצרור החיים נשמותיהם, בגן עדן תהא מנוחתם, אדוני הוא נחלתם, וינוחו בשלום על משכבותם, ונאמר אמן.
משברך אבותינו אברהם, יצחק, יעקב. הוא יברך את חיילי צבא ההגנה לישראל, העומדים על משמר ארצנו וערי אלוהינו, מגבול הלבנון ועד מדבר מצרים, ומן הים הגדול ועד לבוא הערבה, ביבשה, באוויר ובים. ייתן אדוני את אויבינו הקמים עלינו, ניגפים לפניהם. הקדוש ברוך הוא ישמור ויציל את חיילינו מכל צרה וצוקה ומכל נגע ומחלה, וישלח ברכה והצלחה בכל מעשה ידיהם. ידבר שונאינו תחתיהם, ויעטרם בכתר ישועה ובעטרת ניצחון, ויקוים בהם הכתוב, כי אדוני אלוהיכם ההולך עמכם, יילחם לכם עם אויביכם, להושיע אתכם, ונאמר אמן.
Tehillim 130. Shir Ma'alot, Memama Kim Karaticha Adonai, Adonai Shma B'koli, Tiyena Oznecha, Kshuvot B'kol Tachanunai, Im Avonot Tishmar Yad, Adonai Mi Ya'amod, Ki Imcha Aslicha Leman Tivarei, Ki Vizi Adonai Kivsa Nafshi V'Dvaro Hochalti, Nafshi Adonai Mishomim Laboker, Shomim Laboker, Yachel Yisrael El Adonai, Ki Im Adonai Chesed V'Harbe Imo Pedut, V'Hu Yivteh Es Yisrael Mikol Avonosav.
No, נשאיר, יאללה.
קולות בלבה פנימה, נפש יהודי הומיה, ולפתי מזרח קדימה, עין לציון סופיה. עוד לא אבדה תקוותנו, התקווה בת שנות 2000, להיות עם חופשי בארצנו, ארץ ציון ירושלים. להיות עם חופשי בארצנו, ארץ ציון ירושלים.
Okay, just before we sing the Animami, we just have to preface this Animami by saying that we know the story of this Animami was written in a train going to Treblinka. It was sung by the Jews in the cattle cars. We know that Azriel David Fastag, who wrote the nigun for this Ani Ma'amin, he shouted out as they were singing it, someone has to jump off this train and take this nigun to the Majitza Rebbe, because this nigun has to survive. And 2 boys volunteered. He said, I will give you my world to come if you take this song, this nigun, to the Majitza Rebbe. 2 young men jumped off the train. One of them was killed on impact as he fell from the train, and the other one survived to bring this nigun to the Majitza Rebbe in New York. And when the Majitza Rebbe saw the notes and sang the nigun, he said, with this nigun, Jews went to the gas chambers. But with this nigun, also Jews are going to greet Mashiach. So let's sing together. Bezrat Hashem will greet Mashiach.
Ani מאמין, אני מאמין, אני מאמין באמונה שלמה, בביאת המשיח, בביאת המשיח אני מאמין, בביאת המשיח, בביאת המשיח אני מאמין. אני מאמין, אני מאמין, אני מאמין. באמונה שלמה, בביאת המשיח, בביאת המשיח אני מאמין. בביאת המשיח, בביאת המשיח אני מאמין. אני מאמין, אני מאמין, אני מאמין. באמונה שלמה, בביאת המשיח, בביאת המשיח אני מאמין. אני מאמין, אני מאמין, אני מאמין. באמונה שלמה, בביאת המשיח, בביאת המשיח אני מאמין. ואף על פי שיתמהמה עם כל זה אני מאמין. עם כל זה אראה לו בכל יום שיבוא.
בעזרת השם.
Thank you so much for participating in this evening. May we all go from strength to strength and give each other strength. Bezrat Hashem. Have a safe journey home. A note, everybody has to, the only exit that's open is the exit at -3 in the parking garage. Okay, so go into Cinema City from those doors. Take the elevator down to -3, and those doors are open. Be well, be safe. God bless.